Considering home security? Consider this. For 140 years, ADT has helped stop more crime than any other home security company. The yard sign isn't just a sign, it's a line in the sand. It's no wonder 5 times more people choose ADT to protect their homes. Visit ADT.com to learn more. For license information and terms and conditions, visit ADT.com.
Here we are. We're presented by Progressive Insurance. Our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. And what has been proven in the last 15 minutes here, beyond a reasonable doubt, is that we are the 2 stupidest people in the world.
Yes, we are.
All right, so they announced this morning the winners of the Nobel Prize for Chemistry, and Golick has a one-sheet on that.
Yeah.
And we're going to get into all the baseball here for you in a second. You're going to hear from Aaron Boone. You're going to hear from Tim Kirkchin, and we have David Ross in studio in this hour with the playoffs now upon us. But here's how incredibly stupid we are. Are you ready for this?
Sure.
We just put together like a new potential playoff format.
Yes, we did.
In baseball,
yeah.
Right? So you would get 3 wild cards instead of 2 and have them play each other out in an entire first round.
Right.
And at no point did anything like this dawn on us. We went through the entire conversation. We went to a break. I clicked on my mentions.
Yeah.
And I'm now going to summarize basically every message I just received.
Okay.
Hey, genius, what are you doing with the 3 teams that are left? We left an odd number of teams in each league. That obviously cannot work under any circuit, and not one person in this room, not you, not me, and not anyone else in this room who are paid to work in the sports broadcasting business thought to say, that leaves us with an odd number of teams. It doesn't work. It should have dawned on one of us. It certainly should have dawned on either of the 2 of us.
Well, here's where I'm going to backtrack and take myself out of it, and I think people will understand.
Yeah.
You were talking the whole time about it.
Yeah.
And I was just going, every now and then.
You weren't really listening?
I wasn't listening.
Okay.
No. And I think people who have followed the show for a long time will say, that's true. I wasn't listening either, so I don't really know what he said.
They're just waiting until you start talking.
Pretty much, yeah.
But that's the bottom line.
That's really
that
bad.
idea doesn't work.
You know who we need to blame? Hembo.
I do blame Hembo.
Hembo, you're the baseball guy.
I was looking up the Nobel Prize information in chemistry. I was totally zoned out.
It is true. Golick did ask for a one-sheet on the Nobel Prize Award for Chemistry, which was given today. And so let us quickly give that, because I felt we should have been up for that. Everyone has said for years we have great chemistry.
Absolutely.
So I don't know why we didn't win this Nobel Prize in our final year. That said, who did win?
Well, let's see if what these 3 did is better than the chemistry we have on the show.
Okay.
And I could just be absolutely butchering these names.
Okay.
Jacques Dubochet.
Okay.
Joachim Frank. Richard Henderson.
Oh, I think you got it right.
I thought it sounds pretty good. They've won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for developing cryo-electron microscopy, if I said that right, for the high-resolution structure determination of biomolecules in solution. Okay, what is this?
I did a little bit of that last week, but yeah.
You may ask, what is the significance? I have the answer.
Mike, what is the significance of that?
Well, the development allows scientists to visualize proteins and other biological molecules at the atomic level.
Why do they want to do that?
Glad you asked. The technique flash freezes a sample to create a layer of ice-like pane of glass over a layer of liquid where the molecules can retain their natural shape. Now we get into the part about what it may help, and this is actually very, very good.
The fact that there are people doing this and we couldn't figure out that you can have an odd number of teams left in the playoffs is really embarrassing.
So here you go. This is why these people are the smartest people on the planet, and we are idiots.
Okay.
How might it help? Scientists use cryo-electron imaging to quickly determine the shape of the Zika virus once it was identified as the cause of severe birth defects. Knowing the shape of a virus can speed up research into vaccines. There you go.
There you have it.
I mean, are you kidding me?
Do they? Come on, for that, I think a round of applause.
Absolutely right.
Else.
So
they got the Nobel Prize, and I think worthy of a round of applause.
Let's do a few fun facts, shall we, about the Nobel Prize in chemistry?
Sure.
There have been 109 given out. It's been since its inception in 1901. The youngest was Frédéric Joliot.
What was his name again?
Frédéric Joliot.
Okay.
How would you say Joliot?
Joliot.
Okay, there you go.
If he was
Even
French.
better.
If he was American, he'd be Joliot.
Okay. He was the youngest, 35 years old, 1935.
Wouldn't it have been funny if his name was Romeo? Then he'd be Romeo and Juliet.
Again, another reason.
That's why we didn't win the Nobel Prize, because that's the first thing that jumped to my mind.
The oldest person to win was John B. Fenn. He was 85 years old in 2002. And in a rarity, so rare it's only happened once, a 2-timer. Frederick Sanger is the only person to get awarded twice, once in 1958 and the other in 1980.
So there's a pretty big gap.
Sure is.
Between those two, yeah.
And the winners are awarded approximately $1.1 million, depending on what the people, the judges, want to siphon off the top. I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Okay?
Is there corruption in the Nobel Prize? I don't even know that.
They are awarded approximately $1.1 million to split amongst themselves. So there were 3 winners, so that's what they are splitting for doing some incredible work of things that I can barely pronounce.
I totally agree. I mean, I really do believe that the juxtaposition of they're doing that and us thinking, you know what, we'll just add one wildcard team on either side, it'll work out fine, and it never dawning on us that would leave us with 3 teams in the league and no conceivable chance of that working that's pretty much as telling as it gets.
Quite honestly, do we think Rashard Henderson could tell us what the starting lineup for the Yankees is?
No, but I think he could have looked at our new playoff structure and immediately said, guys, that isn't going to work.
Do you think he would have? Do you think he would have noticed it that quickly or just not cared?
He's probably more of a soccer fan if he's French than he is a baseball fan, but one way or another. Let's get back to business.
Okay.
Pro customers right now at Lowe's, you can save on the supplies you need most from the brands you trust to help get the job done on time and on budget. Visit Lowe'sForPros.com for details. It was a crazy night last night at Yankee Stadium. I opened the show this morning by mentioning there was once a famous song written by Barbara Cook called "It's Not Where You Start, It's Where You Finish." And that was certainly the case for the Yankees, who got one of the worst postseason starts in history from Luis Severino last night. He pitches a third of an inning. He gives up 3 earned runs. Only once in baseball's postseason history had a team come back to win from a circumstance like that. It was the decisive game of the 1925 World Series. Well, last night, Irvin Santana couldn't hold that.
Right.
The key to the whole game last night was 2 keys. One was the bullpen, the Yankee bullpen coming in and getting those 2 punch-outs in the first inning.
Right. That was
just getting right out of that.
Chad Green came in and did a fantastic job.
Because they're staring at 5-0, 6-0 there, to hold it at 3-0, and then to get the runs back right away so you don't have that long night of now it's the 4th inning and we're still losing. Now it's the 5th inning and we're still losing.
When are you starting to press?
That I think was it. So that to me is
so
the
Santana,
game.
I mean, Severino is 23 years old. Santana's a vet.
Yeah.
Okay? He was, I think, another hit. Hembo and I were talking before the show, another hit or so away from being pulled in the first inning.
Right.
And he only went 2 complete. So that bullpen had to do some work as well. They didn't do as well as the Yankee bullpen of Green, Robertson, Canely, and Chapman, which were just, as I said, 13 strikeouts for them, tied the most all-time by a team's bullpen in 9-inning postseason. 2015 Cubs against the Cardinals, 1985 Cardinals against the Royals. They were absolute money, and you're right. For Green to come in and get the 2 in the first inning and get out of that situation with men on second and third was big time for them to not go deeper in the hole. And then by the bottom of the first inning, it is already back to square one. It's 3-3, and you could say, okay, that damage, you can breathe that big sigh of relief. Let's start the game over.
Absolutely. The average fastball thrown by Yankee pitchers yesterday was 98.1 miles per hour. That's the average. That means that a 97-mile-an-hour fastball was bringing the average down.
Yeah.
It was comparatively slow last night. And that's what the game is right now. Give me back those numbers that you gave me earlier this morning on the screen there with how last night was really a microcosm of what baseball has become in so many different ways, because there were some really interesting numbers that came out of that.
Yeah, I mean, we're done with the starters going, 6-7 innings. I mean, they're averaging 5 innings now. It's the bullpen now. It's a collective bullpen that's getting the job done now.
Yeah. Yesterday, here's a perfect microcosm of baseball circa 2017. And last night, the first game of this year's postseason, 9 of the 12 runs scored came on home runs. 250 of the 343 pitches were thrown by relievers. Now, that's obviously a totally disproportionate number than you would normally get. But even so, you see pitches. Would you guess that what's the over-under on the number of pitchers that we will see in the starting pitchers that we'll see in the 7th inning in the second round, the next round of this year's playoffs? I mean, there'll be fewer. It'll be less than 50% of the games. There were 18 hits in the game last night and 18 strikeouts. And thus the game lasted 3 hours and 51 minutes. That's baseball in 2017.
Yeah, it is. So that's what you're doing. You're loading up. Again, the old-time starters and guys that have passed and guys that are old are either rolling in their graves or eyes are, eyebrows are being raised at, my God, these guys go 5 innings. That's it. If you're lucky, before you turn it over to the bullpen, which has become the biggest part of the team.
Aaron Boone was there taking it all in. These were his impressions.
Chad Green coming on in the first and putting out the fire with 2 big strikeouts. kind of electrified this crowd again and got the crowd into it. And then Brett Gardner's at bat to lead off the first inning to kind of set the tone. And I think right out off the bat, Irvin Santana with the pitching change had a long delay before he threw his first pitch, and from Jump Street, he did not have his slider, and you could tell the Yankees knew it, and they were able to wait him out, put some couple of big swings on it, and take over the game.
It's incredible what that bullpen was able to do, and look at what they're going to do going forward as they lose to the Cleveland Indians in the divisional series. Sorry, but
Well, look, I mean, now they go up against Golick's team, and we'll see. They will be a prohibitive underdog, but. The truth is, look, A, obviously we all know in a baseball postseason series anything can happen. B, a lot of this is going to come down to the pitching. And it's the first question, or the second question, and fill in the blank, is about the Indians' rotation, so I'll save it for that in a minute. Okay. But I like what Francona is doing with the way he has set up his rotation for this series. We'll see. Do I think do I expect the Yankees to win that series? No. Will I be stunned if they win that series? No, absolutely
no.
not.
They played 7 times. The Indians won 5 of them. But so we'll get to that and fill in the blank. One quick thing. How about can we do a quick moment of silence for Gary Sanchez and his family jewels? I mean,
is that something we can show on ESPN too? Is that graphic video?
If you didn't see it, Google it. I mean, he took a foul ball. I mean, square in just.
I apologize for showing that again. Here.
Let me just.
I should have given more warning.
Here comes a slow motion. Just my. I mean, listen. I've always talked about the bounce up is worse, up from underneath. But let me tell you, that was a straight on, bullseye. That was like in Battleship when you play that game.
Yeah.
The direct hit. Oh, yeah. I mean, that was and I know you're wearing the protective cup. I look forward to talking to Dave Ross about that.
He's over there. Yeah. I see Rossi over there. He's squinty. He's looking squeamish already at the sight of that.
Even if you have a cup on, the speed that ball's coming, I know it got tipped, but the reverberation alone, let alone did it catch a side of the cup and maybe jam the cup into, the soft tissue area as we're talking about here. Am I being too descriptive?
We have a lot of different looks at this. I can't believe we have like a whole separate package of B-roll. Excuse my language there. Yeah. We have a variety of looks at this thing. I can't help but notice. We have more angles on this thing they do in an NFL game for a guy crossing the goal line.
Let me just say there was movement. I mean, it's just who's pitching? Who threw that? Robertson. The reaction of Robertson
he saw
on that. I mean, listen, any guy out there, if you aren't cringing on the ground in the fetal position after seeing something like that, do you ice that down? I mean, are we talking a bag of ice?
We'll talk to Rossi about it.
Is that what we're talking about?
He's laughing over there now.
Do we think we're black and blue now in that area?
It's an uncomfortable laugh. I can see it right now.
I mean, and that was the 6th inning. That needed to be the last out of the game, so he could just feel up in the clubhouse after the game. But he stayed in the game. I mean, because if he went out, what are you putting out for? What? Jewel shot? I mean, I don't know where you're going.
I think we all understand what you're talking about.
Okay.
I think it's time to move on.
You want me to stop?
Gastrointestinal pain, I think, is what it's.
There ain't nothing about
that's going on up into
me.
Well, but it kind of.
Well, here's the thing: when you get the shot up from underneath, I think that's when it kind of gets to that feeling you're talking about. Square on. Let me tell you what.
That's one brutal moment.
Someone break out the needle.
All right, let's move.
I need to numb it up.
Let's move on to fill in the blank, shall we? It's brought to you by Mahindra Tractors and Utility Vehicles. Mahindra USA, the world's #1 selling tractor. Fill in the blank. We'll go all around the world of sports, including a couple of baseball questions in here as well. But we start with football. Golick, Ben Roethlisberger, for all intents and purposes, calling out Antonio Brown is blank.
Well, I'm never a fan of that. So while I don't look at it as, wow, do you believe what he said? He went to an area where I just don't think you do as a teammate. I think you say he's competitive. We'll deal with anything else, personally, and you go on from there. So overall, I'm never a big fan of even slightly calling out. I know people rip me for that, and they'd rather hear a guy tell the truth. That's fine. You can feel however you want. That's how I feel. I'm a guy that says, that everything should be fine on the surface publicly, and you handle things privately.
In my case, maybe I'm reading too much into it, but the word I'm going to use here is telling. Because usually the stuff, they try as hard as they can to tamp this down. And I'm thinking back to Antonio Brown and the incident with the Facebook Live last year in the playoffs. And, maybe there are some guys in that organization that are getting tired enough of whatever it is his act is that this was telling, that Ben didn't hold back in ways that we thought he might. All right, next, fill in the blank. The Indians not starting their ace Corey Kluber in Game 1 of the ALDS is blank.
Listen, I'm trying to think of all the different ramifications of this, and I'm looking forward to talking to Dave Ross about that, and hopefully, because I'm a little nervous about it, and I need him to kind of calm me down. You just kind of, the expectation was Kluber starts in 1. You get as many starts out of him as obviously you can, but now he's going Game 2. I'm going to need a pro on this one. I'm going to need Ross to kind of calm me down.
No, you don't. I got you covered here, big fella.
I don't care.
Here's why it's the right move to make. Because if he pitches Game 2, he is then lined up to pitch Game 5 on regular rest.
Right.
If he pitches Game 1, he would either pitch Game 4 on short rest,
right,
or not pitch until Game 5. Plus, if you manage to put the series away in 4 games or fewer,
right,
you have him lined up to start Game 1 of the ALCS. So I believe that it is the right move. I've always thought that the Yankees, for example, for years did this. They would pitch Andy Pettitte, who might very well be who might very well have been their best postseason pitcher, despite whether he was their best pitcher on their roster that year or not. They'd always put him in that Game 3. Because Game 3 is sort of a critical game.
Yeah.
We always focus on Game 1. But Game 3 in a best-of-7, which usually lines you up to pitch Game 7 also, I think is actually the more important
tomorrow
slot.
night's regular rest. I mean, it
would be his regular rest coming off the regular season.
Right.
But you give him one extra day there, but then he's lined up to pitch twice in this series on regular rest.
Okay, you didn't do anything for me. I want to talk to Dave.
I think I just gave you the answer that you were looking for.
I don't care what you said.
You're going to be busy talking to Rossi about what happened to Sanchez. You're not even going to have time.
It's going to be a large part of the – just get ready for that, Dave. We're going to talk about, the jewel shot.
All right, next. Fill in the blank.
Yeah.
The NBA ditching the East-West format of the All-Star game and instead picking teams is blank.
I don't care. Oh, so what? I mean, listen, that to me, the NBA All-Star weekend is one of the best. Baseball is one of the best, and it has nothing to do with the game. The baseball game, in my eyes, is actually better than the basketball. The basketball game is just a bunch of running up and down in different ways to alley-oop and slam dunk. The game, I rarely watch the game. I watch the slam dunk, the three-point, the skills challenge. I like all that stuff. So the game, I could care less how they do it. I don't care. And so let's mix it up a little bit. Let the guys pick the team like you're in the schoolyard and, who's last picked out of 12.
Yeah, I think it'll be there are some things about it that'll be interesting. I forget who I heard saying this yesterday, but they were saying it might be the way they're doing it is the leading vote getter in the East and the leading vote getter in the West will get to be the captains and then pick teams from wherever they want. So last year that would have been LeBron and Steph Curry.
Friends. They don't care about they're picking friends.
Yeah, I guess you have to.
This is where the banana boat can get together.
But you got to fill out a team, right? You have to. You have to have a couple of big guys and whatever it is. But more to the point. How about
in this game? Do you really?
Well, you have to have something. It would have been more interesting if you just, and I don't know how they would have set this up, but if you would have had KD and Westbrook be the captains.
Oh, yeah.
And let them pick against each other or something like that. So the point here is, you didn't care about it the previous format. No. They're trying to give you a little something that'll spice it up a little bit.
I don't mind them trying that. I don't think it's going to make me be any more interested because it's just it would be the same players playing the same game just picked by two people. It's still going to be 160 to 150.
Right.
A bunch of alley-oops. So that game never really, I never really said I got to get my popcorn and sit down and watch that.
Next, fill in the blank. Through the first 4 weeks of the season, your NFL MVP is...
Wow. Kareem Hunt?
That's where I was going to go.
Yeah?
He has more rushing yards in the second halves of games this season than any other player has on the year. His second half rushing total is greater than any other running back in the league. He's run for over 500 yards in 4 games total.
If New England would have had another big game and Brady another big game, I would have said Brady because he has had monster stats coming into the game.
They're 2-2.
Now they're 2-2. I would probably say Kareem Hunt, which is amazing being a rookie.
Kansas City is the only unbeaten team. Feels like the right thing, right?
I'm trying to think who else.
Generally speaking, you start looking at the quarterbacks of the good teams. Would you give it to him? Would you give it to Alex Smith if you want to just start there? I think I would be, and I hate to say this because I like Alex Smith a lot and I like sort of the way things are going for him. Would you look at the Rams, a team that has surprised you and is playing so well and consider someone like Todd Gurley? I don't even know, who else you would look at. The Rams have surprised people by playing well early. Matthew Stafford, his team is 6 inches away from being unbeaten.
You look at Green Bay and Aaron Rodgers. as well. I mean,
these are the places that you would
I know
look.
You start to look at
all the usual suspects.
Yeah.
But I think right now I'd give it to Kareem Hunt.
Yeah, let's do that.
Next, Danny Trevathan's suspension being reduced to 1 game from 2 is blank.
Is correct. I definitely think 2 was too much. I think it was set up to be able to come down a game. If it was just a fine, I think I would have been just fine with it as well. Again, I understand if these hits we lined up all the time to do. You know, a sitting duck like that, man, you try to absolutely destroy him. But they want the head down out of the game, and I understand that. Sometimes, to me, they go overboard in what they're doing to try and do it, but I get it from the safety aspect. So, because of that, and dropping the head, and that's what they wanted to penalize, I can see the game. But I'm glad they went from 2 to 1, without question. I think they should have.
I think if I was going to try and fill in this blank with a word, I would say it's sort of an old guard way of looking at it, and that's who Derek Brooks is, and that's how he played. And again, Booger told me yesterday that's what he expected Derek Brooks to do.
I think a lot of people expected that
because he's a player of an era where that's the way you hit, and so he gets it. But the reality is, this is more than anything what they want.
You want it out of the game.
If this isn't going to draw us again, I'm not telling you he did a dirty, malicious thing,
and I don't think he did. He hit how you hit.
And if you're not going to punish this significantly, then what is worthy of a punishment? In the end, whether he meant to or not, he hit him directly in the face with the crown of his helmet, a guy who was being held up by 3 other players. If that's not a 2-game suspension, I don't think anything can be a 2-game suspension. I mean, you'd have to walk up to a guy and punch him in the head to get a 2-game suspension.
They want this out of the game. It costs you a game. It costs him a game check. I'm fine with it. I mean, that's still significant. You're losing a game. I mean, there's still something to that. And it's something they want out of the game, so they definitely have to punish a hit like that.
I think the fact that he had no history of being dirty or anything like that helped him a lot.
Okay, keep your eyes closed.
Okay.
I want to show you my first ever painting.
All right.
Okay. Open your eyes.
Oh, that's a lot of colors and shapes.
So be honest. What do you think?
Well, I like how if you switch to Geico, you could save hundreds of dollars on car insurance.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Here, why don't I hold your paintbrush while you call them?
Geico, because saving 15% or more on car insurance is always a great answer.
We are Mike and Mike. We've made our way to the Scott's Lounge. David Ross has been in the studio here listening to the last 10 or 15 minutes. So, Mike, I think he has an idea of what's to come.
Yeah, he does. I mean, let's just get rid of the elephant in the room, shall we?
Yeah.
I mean,
it does not feel good.
Well, I mean, I understand that. Again, we're talking about Gary Sanchez, the catcher for the Yankees. He got a foul ball, I mean, square on to the family jewels. And any guy out there, if you weren't on the ground in the fetal position when you saw that, Robertson, the pitcher, even was aghast at what he saw as well.
His reaction was the glove over the mouth, and I think he may have thrown up in his glove in that moment. I think we all, as men, if you've ever been hit there and you saw how it just, the slow motion replay, it just rattled, the what we want to call the meatpacking district in New York. It is the worst feeling, and it's there. It's like, oh no, here it comes. That bad feeling.
It is. It's delayed, right?
It is delayed
that second or two, and then it's just
and then the stomach ache comes. And Mike, I heard you talk earlier. It's underneath when it hits that underneath shot too is really bad.
How does he stay in the game? I mean, how do you shake that off, Rossi? I mean,
well, it's one of those, like, it hurts and then the stomach ache comes and then you're like, you see him kind of like jumping around and trying to just shake that feeling. But it goes away to an extent where you can get back to like focusing on the game. But there's definitely an ice bath coming when you get back in the
I would have immediately asked for the numbing shot without question.
I want no neadles down there.
No, that's true. That is true. Now, people
I would
are
have
always
announced my retirement on the field. I would have circled. I would have invited the media to come down on the field, and while lying on the ground, I would have announced my retirement.
You're right about this. When you see it in slow motion, just kind of the reverberation of everything kind of moving there, just horrific.
And you never know during the game how the boys are moving around down there and where they are situated. But I ended up at the back of my career. I would go jock strap with the cup in it, and then I would go another jock on top just to make sure it was like nice and tight.
People were always stunned that football players don't wear cups. We never had. The way you fall and move, there would be way too much much pinching involved. It just wasn't worth wearing it. So when did you first start wearing it in baseball, and what was the worst shot you ever took?
We always wore it. Catching, I caught in Little League. I remember I had this little soft thing that my mom bought me. It was like, wait, I'm kind of embarrassed to wear this. But now I can't step on a baseball field without a cup on. It's just unnatural for me to put on baseball pants.
Covering games.
I caught a shot in a minor league ball. A guy was throwing 100. We had a rehabber from the big leagues, and I got a foul ball, direct hit. Remember, it just went straight down. My stomach hurt for 2 innings. We took the bus back to Vero Beach. I got undressed, and I had a dent in my plastic cup the size of like a little bit bigger than a golf ball. And I don't know how it didn't, how things moved around.
Damage you, huh?
Yeah, nothing really bad. It was. I think I still somewhere have that dented cup, like in an old garage somewhere, in the garage somewhere in an old box.
All right, moving right along. David Ross is with us at the Scott's Lounge. Feed now for a better lawn next spring with Scott's Winter Guard. Gary Sanchez, by the way, teamed with Aaron Judge to go 4 for 8 yesterday. But let's talk about the first inning, because obviously that's where all the fireworks take place. So Severino goes out there last night, and it just can't go any worse than it went for him. But when he leaves the mound, second and third, 1 out in a 3-0 game, what happens right then, to me, is what turns the entire night. Because if that turns into 5-0, I don't think that we have the same result last night.
You hit it right on the head. The fact that Greeny was able to come in and shut 2 strikeouts, not allow that 4th run. A terrible start by Severino. I think he was a little amped up. His pitches were really flat. His slider was more like a cutter. He was throwing so hard. His changeup was a non-factor for him. Just not the guy that I think they expected, obviously, to start that game. But the fact that Greeny comes in, punchy, second, third, only 1 out, and then they just roll after that. The bullpen, David Robertson, Tommy Canley, the whole group just did a phenomenal job. And what really set it apart for me in the first inning was Brett Gardner, the leadoff walk from Santana, a great at bat by Aaron Judge in his first postseason at bat, having the poise, having the calm heart rate in that moment, come out with a big knock. You got first and third, and obviously Didi goes deep, and now it's a game again.
So we'll get into the game obviously, but for the kid, the 23-year-old. What about him? We always, in my sport, in football, you always worry about the mentality of the quarterback when he has a bad game or gets hit too much or throws too many interceptions. Do you worry here because of his youth, or is that maybe a positive for him of going into his next game?
I think the next game he starts, the first inning, will be key. Again, getting that monkey off your back, being able to slow things down, calm your heart rate. I know, talking to Larry Rothschild, he is a guy that wants to go harder when things go bad. And so that is something they've been working on, of when you think you need to go harder, let's slow things down, try to take something off. And I think his first inning, his next start, will be very important.
Mike and Mike, David Ross in our studio as we look back on last night's American League Wildcard Wild One. I also believe that the Yankees getting those runs back, as you pointed out, as quickly as they did is a huge factor. And look, Santana's a veteran pitcher. You get handed a 3-0 lead in the first inning. Your job is to keep that and apply that pressure, because that building is going to feel it. If you get into the third inning, the fourth inning, the fifth inning, and it's still 3-0, it's got to be, and you've obviously been there, so I'd love you to describe it, how different the pressure is versus they get the runs back immediately.
Well, and we talk about the shutdown inning. After you score in the major leagues, you score some runs. We need that next inning to put up a 0 from our starting pitcher. Keep the momentum, get our hitters back in the dugout. Santana wasn't able to do that last night. That 3-run homer, you saw the electricity come back into that ballpark. It was a great environment. I was there pregame, an amazing environment. And I was there for that first inning. The energy had been taken out of that ballpark. Everybody was like, you got to be kidding me. We've been looking forward to this back in New York, the playoffs. We love this team. That home run from Didi sent electricity back through. And I thought at that moment, game was over. Yankees going to win.
Overall, you were in this game a long, long time. I'm sure through what we're seeing as, especially this year, as a home run or a strikeout. But also, we saw it certainly last year. We've seen it where if starters go 5 innings, you're happy. And it's now, let's get the bullpen by committee, or that one guy, that setup guy that is fantastic. So what do you think of that change? It's where we are. It doesn't seem like it's going away soon. What do you think about it for the game of baseball?
I'm more of, I like the starters to go out. They don't establish anything anymore. There's nobody going out establishing their fastball, how they're going to pitch in and out. That's why I love Justin Verlander being with the Houston Astros. He's going out there. His mentality is still 9. He's old school. The young guys coming to the game right now, and they're going sliders in the first inning. I mean, they're not establishing anything. They're pitching straight to scouting reports with all the numbers, and I get some of that. Like I get, working on the hitter's weakness and trying to exploit those things to your strength. But I think the ability to go deeper into games is lacking in our game, and almost kind of coddling the young guys and not having them go out and go deep into games. And, that 100 pitch mark is kind of even coming down to 85, 90 now. And I don't love it, but the fact it is tough from a hitter's perspective to face a different pitcher every inning, and when that bullpen does come in, and the way everybody down there throws 95 to 98 plus now, it's ridiculous.
Do you think young pitchers now, and the way the game is played, they're just asked, "Hey, get me 5"?
Yeah.
So you don't think their mentality is, "I want to go longer"? You think it is now the shorter?
I think they've created, with all the numbers and especially the new thinking, is the third time through the lineup, the averages go up for the hitters and blah blah blah. I think that it's because they're no longer establishing how they're going to pitch, and they're using their whole repertoire in the first inning. Whereas for me, it was like, I don't want to show a guy my second and third pitch until maybe his second at bat or his third at bat. I'm going to go out and see if I can pitch with my fastball. A guy with a two-seamer working down, trying to get early contact. Now it's about the strikeout. We're trying to strike everybody out. Strikeouts are up in the hitters and the pitchers, and we're not going out and we're just pitching the scouting report rather than the catcher feeling out, okay, this guy's got a long swing. This is how he matches up. I can pound this guy in, get him to chase up with a fastball. I've always been a big proponent of pitching with the fastball. I think that's the best way to get out of big situations later in the game.
It's really interesting insight here. Mike and David Ross. And to your point, there were 18 hits in the game last night, and there were 18 strikeouts. 18 strikeouts in the game last night. So now the Yankees go on, and for those who didn't watch a lot of Yankee baseball this year, this is who they are. They've got a great bullpen, and they hit home runs. So last night they were able to hit home runs. Traditionally in the postseason, those numbers go way down. So the home run numbers, I should say, go way down because of the step up in the quality of pitching. So projected forward force, the American League now has the Yankees, the Indians, the Red Sox, and the Astros. In your mind, who's the favorite in the AL?
I mean, the Indians are the team to beat for me. The thing about the Yankees is the only team that I think in a 5-game series can beat the Indians. I think they're just so solid. It's hard for me to picture a team beating the Indians 4 times. But that being said, the bullpens match up. The starting pitchers can be similar. I like Cleveland's starting pitching a little bit better. That's why I give them the edge. But the Yankees in New York, the confidence, the young guys that have no fear. I love the youth in the game right now. There's no sense of history, or they're just going out and playing their game. And if Aaron Judge continues to swing the bat the way he's swinging, he's a huge presence. That lineup is very, very deep. Didi Gregorius doesn't get a lot of love. Gardner doesn't get a lot of love. I mean, these guys, I know Aaron Judge is the talk, but they've got a really deep lineup.
And then tonight with Colorado and Arizona, I mean, Arizona the favorite here, but again, does it matter who they go on to next, with the Dodgers and how that would play?
Well, I think Arizona gives them the best chance to beat the Dodgers. I don't like the Colorado-Dodger matchup. I think the Dodgers are too strong. But Arizona's played well against them lately. They've swept the last 2 series with them. The Dodgers haven't been playing their best baseball in the second half. They were unbeatable in the first half. Arizona has the depth in the pitching staff. They've got a great lineup. JD Martinez is the best hitter on the planet right now. I mean, he's doing some crazy things. So I really like Arizona. But I think this game is going to start. This wildcard game tonight is going to come down to starting pitching. John Gray, if he comes out and he's pitched really well lately, he's been throwing well, yeah. And he's got the velo. Velo plays in the postseason a little more. Zach Greinke's going to play with the numbers, and he's now lost some velo, and he's going to exploit their weakness and pitch. He's got four pitches he can throw at any time. But John Gray, velo plays for me in the postseason, and he's got that.
We'll have it for you tonight here on ESPN Radio. Diamondbacks and Rockies presented by AutoZone. Coverage starts 7:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio, ESPNRadio.com, and the ESPN app. This is always a joy. Let's do it again soon. Thanks, David.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Thanks. Good to have you again. I apologize for the tone of the beginning of the
I'm
conversation.
going to bring a cup next time and just everybody show how we wear it.
Demonstration. Hembo's our resident baseball guy. Let's throw one right into his jewels and see how he reacts.
Look at the look on his face. Back in a moment, Mike and Mike. We're Mike and Mike. Tomorrow at this time, we'll be talking football with Adam Schefter, who will be in our studio. Right now, I'm reading tweets like this from Dan. Ouch. I'm at home seeing that, and it hurts just watching.
Yeah, way more than ouch.
Again, that terrible hit. And then the other thing people are reacting to is your shirt.
Yeah.
Mary tweets, Golick, you're wearing a button-down. Are you going to a wedding after the show?
Because I'm wearing a button down.
And Beth tweets, why so fancy today? Hashtag looking good. The first thing I said when I saw you this morning was, you look fantastic.
You know, I've worn this once before, but I normally, I wear a polo. This is a button-down shirt. It's the Untuck It shirt.
Yeah.
And I love Untuck because it's comfortable and it can be untucked because I love things untucked. So it's very, very comfortable. And, you know, when you do a show every single day and you're on TV, you go through the closet every morning, you try and find stuff that you're not wearing, you know, that often all the time. So you're just looking to mix it up. And I saw the shirt and I said, I haven't worn this in a while. And it's extremely comfortable, so I figured I'd put it on. I didn't know it would grab the reaction that it is. Now that it is, I'll get more of these and I'll wear it more.
By your standards, it's very dressy.
It is very dressy.
And it looks very nice.
Yeah.
Okay, you know, your goal when you do a show like this is varied. I mean, obviously we want to entertain people and all that, but every once in a while, I feel like we can learn something about sports, and I think we just accomplished that.
Completely
That was
agree.
such a good conversation with David Ross. I hope people enjoyed that as much as we did, because you can look at a sheet filled with numbers, and you can see all of them, but it's not until you hear a former catcher explaining to you exactly why it's happening the way he did, and that guys are going out there based upon the numbers, and they are throwing their entire scouting report the first time they're going through the order,
early,
as opposed to how they didn't used to. And so here are the numbers to back it up. He's saying they have numbers that show that the third time through with the order, and of course this stands to reason.
Yes, it does. Yeah,
but to the third time through, but it didn't mean that you didn't used to do it.
Right.
Guys would. That's why they would hide their stuff. They would try and just use one pitch to get you out the first time they saw you, and then start expanding the repertoire as the night went on. Well, this season, when facing a starting pitcher for the third time through the order, hitters hit .273 with an OPS of .803. When facing a reliever for the first time, they hit .244 with an OPS of .720. So the numbers just bear it out, and that's what teams are doing.
Right.
Look at the numbers. Not that complicated. Now, if you're sending Corey Kluber out there, if you're sending Clayton Kershaw out there, you know, if you're sending tonight Zach Greinke out there, where does the money factor in? I'm paying this guy $30 million. He should be able, I mean, is it too much to ask him to get these guys out for a third time through the order and get me into the eighth inning? Are we at a place now where we're not even expecting that from the biggest name pitchers in the sport?
That's the big question, and obviously we don't know the answer to that. What's the expectation? That's why I asked Dave, is these young pitchers, do they go out with that mentality of, you know what, I'm going to give you 5 good if I can? You know, and that's kind of your limit, where obviously the thought process and the play forever had been, why wouldn't I throw a complete game? Why wouldn't I be out there pitching the entire game? To where we are now, where it's come down to the starters are averaging 5 innings. But the biggest difference is the mentality shifted to now that's how you're managing.
Right.
And that's the attitude of the young pitchers now. I only need to get you 4 or 5 innings, and I'm good. Now we're satisfied with that. Or with the pitchers that you're paying the big money to is the expectation that, and they're the aces, that they should be going longer. Or, hey, if I'm an ace and I'm making $30 million a year and I give you 5 shutout innings, I've done my job. Is that where we are now, given the fact that when you start bringing the bullpen in, if the average does start going down, because as Dave Ross said, you start to see different pitchers, and that can be a positive as well. It's just all about where the mentality is now. Is the satisfaction in today's game 5 innings, and that's the goal now? You've done your job. Because normally you went 5 innings and we're done. It was, well, you didn't really go as long as we wanted you to go, right? Now it's like, if you did 5 and you held them to a run or no runs, a run, maybe 2. Okay, hey, nice outing. Good start.
We're Mike and Mike. We're presented by Progressive Insurance, our guests on the Shell Pennzoil Performance Line. So it's yes, both parts of that with Rossi are fascinating, because we see the numbers, and then he's giving you the explanation of why it's happening.
Great explanation.
And if you go out there, to your point about the mentality, if you go out there and you say, I'm throwing everything I got,
I'm unloading it right now,
in the first inning, that's another way of saying I'm not going to be here in the 6th inning. I got more numbers that show, including numbers on Clayton Kershaw. Fascinating stuff. That's next. Will Kane on the way, and a whole lot more. Stay there.